17th. I'd like to read the following. With the reopening of California, removal of meeting capacity restrictions, City of Paso Robles has returned to in-person meetings with the City Council. Residents now have the option to attend the meeting in person or to participate remotely. Out of abundance of caution, seating capacity at public meetings will be limited to provide adequate and social distancing for those inside the council chamber. Due to the adjustment in seating capacity, the city has taken additional steps to ensure community participation. These steps include opening the rear doors of the council chambers, and if the provided seating inside the room reaches capacity, the city will provide a speaker system outside so participants can still hear the council meeting. Like to participate in public comment, ask to come inside for that segment of the meeting and then return to your socially distanced area. To participate remotely, residents can listen to the meeting live on the radio station AM 1230 or live stream the meeting at www.prcity.com/YouTube. Call 805-865-7276 to provide public comment via telephone. Phone line will be open just prior to the start of the closed session meeting, again prior to the start of the regular meeting. Written public comments can be submitted via email to cityclerk@prcity.com prior to 12 noon on the day of the council meeting. To be posted as an addendum to the agenda. If submitting written comments in advance of the meeting, please note the agenda item by number or name. If attending the meeting in person, please submit all speaker cards and correspondence for the City Council to the City. With that, I'll call us to order and ask for a roll call.
Councilmember Garcia.
Here.
Councilmember Gregory.
Here.
Councilmember Hammond.
Here.
Councilmember Strong.
Here.
Mayor Martin.
And I'm present. So we have all council members present. Our first order of business is a closed session this evening, so I'll ask the city attorney to please announce what items will be discussed in that closed session meeting.
Thank you, Mayor. Tonight on closed session, we have, I believe, 5 items. Conference with labor negotiators pursuant to Government Code Section 54957.6 with the city negotiator, Mayor Martin, and Councilmember Hammond, and unrepresented employee city manager. We have the public employee appointment pursuant to Government Code Section 54957 for the position of city manager. We have conference with labor negotiators pursuant to Government Code Section 54957.6 with city negotiators Greg Carpenter, interim city manager, and Ryan Cornell, administrative services director, with the following employee organizations: unrepresented management, unrepresented part-time employees, Service Employees International Union, Paso Robles Police Association, Paso Robles Professional Firefighters. Our 4th closed session this evening, conference with real property negotiators pursuant to Government Code Section 54956.8, property Pioneer Park, negotiators Greg Carpenter, interim city manager, negotiating parties Paso Robles Museum Foundation and the city, under negotiation price and terms of payment. And finally, conference with legal counsel for anticipated litigation pursuant to Government Code Section 54956.9 and Section 54956.9E1, significant exposure to litigation based on existing facts and circumstances pursuant to paragraph 2 of subdivision D of Government Code Section 54956.9, one potential case. There are facts and circumstances that may result in litigation, but which the city believes are not yet known to potential plaintiffs.
Thank you very much. I see no one in the room from the public to rise for public comment. Do we have anybody on the phone?
No, sir.
Very good. Then we'll close public comment for this portion of the meeting, and if there's no objection, we will recess to closed session. Thank you.
So Councilmember Strong, you can just stay in the room and they're going to go upstairs and log in.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the meeting of the Paso Robles City Council for Tuesday, August the 17th. I'd like to read this before we get started. With the reopening of California, removal of meeting capacity restrictions, City of Paso Robles has returned to in-person meetings for City Council. Residents now have the option to attend the meeting in person or to participate remotely. Out of an abundance of caution, seating capacity at public meetings will be limited to in capacity. This will provide adequate social distancing for those inside the council chamber. Due to the adjustment in seating capacity, the city has taken additional steps to ensure community participation. These steps include opening the rear doors of the council chambers, and if the provided seating inside the room reaches capacity, the city will provide a speaker system outside so participants can still hear the council meeting. If you would like to participate in public comment, you'll be asked to come inside for that segment of the meeting and then return to your socially distanced area. To participate remotely, residents can listen to the meeting on the radio station at AM 1230 or live stream the meeting at www.prcity.com/YouTube and call 805-865-7276 to provide public comment via telephone. The phone line will be open just prior to the start of the closed session meeting and again prior to the start of the regular meeting. Written public comments can be submitted via email to cityclerk@prcity.com prior to 12 noon on the day of the council meeting to be posted as an addendum to the agenda. If submitting written comments in advance of the meeting, please note the agenda item by number or name. If attending the meeting in person, please submit all speaker cards and correspondence for City Council to the City Clerk. And with that, we will reconvene from closed session. I will call the meeting to order, invite you all to rise as you are able, and join us in the Pledge of Allegiance. With me, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands,
one nation, under God, indivisible, liberty and justice for all.
And we have our invocation tonight. I should have reminded you to remain standing. I apologize.
And guidance as they lead our city. We thank you for them and we bless them and bless this time together. In your precious name we pray. Amen.
Thank you. Do we have a roll call, please?
Councilmember Garcia?
Here.
Councilmember Gregory?
Here.
Councilmember Hammond?
Here.
Councilmember Strong?
Here.
Mayor Martin?
Here. All members are present. We'll ask now if we could please have staff introductions. We'll go around the room. If you're a member of the city staff or happen to serve on a city commission or advisory body, we would invite you to stand, identify yourself so we can see who does the work of the city. On my right.
Warren Frace, Community Development Director. With me tonight remotely will be Katie Bannister, our Assistant Planner, and Lori Wilson, our other Assistant Planner.
Melissa Boyer, City Clerk, joined by Dave McHugh, IT Manager, and Shauna Hohenstein, Civic Engagement Coordinator.
Scott Howell, Battalion Chief, Fire and Emergency Services.
Brian Cornell, Administrative Services Director. On the line is Shannon Faust, our HR.
Jonathan Swanetta, our Chief.
Flesha, Recreation Services Manager.
Lee Dolan, Community Services Director, and you're also joined by Frida Berman, Maintenance Attendant.
Time Rose, Police Chief. Caleb Davis, Police Commander. Also,
Greg Carpenter, Interim City Manager.
Go ahead. Isaac Rosen, Interim Assistant City Attorney.
Very good. Thank you all very much. Prior to this meeting, we had an announced closed session of the Paso Robles City Council. I will ask the city attorney if there was any reportable action.
Thank you, Mayor Martin. The only reportable action from tonight's closed session, pursuant to Government Code Section 54953 C.2, and prior to taking final action, The City Council is required to orally report a summary of a recommendation for final actions on the salaries, salary schedules, and compensation paid in the form of fringe benefits for a local agency executive, in this instance, the city manager, pursuant to the open session agendized item. The contract under consideration this evening for city manager is as follows: an annual base salary of $221,000, a 3.5% wage increase effective the first pay period in September 2022, conditioned on satisfactory performance, with future increases after that time subject to council's discretion, and the following compensation paid in the form of fringe benefits. The city manager would receive all regular health and welfare benefits as provided to employees of the city's executive management group. These benefits include medical, dental, vision, and CalPERS requirement. City manager shall receive a car allowance of $230.77 per pay period, and subject to any limitations imposed by law and by the city's 457 plan, the city will contribute on employees' behalf $369.23 each completed pay period to employees' deferred compensation account. And with that oral presentation, Mayor Martin, that's the only reportable action out of closed session.
Thank you very much. We move on with our agenda this evening. First up, as always, we have presentations, and first up on that list tonight, we have our COVID-19 community update. Mr. Stornetta.
Good evening, Mayor Martins, members of the council. Jonathan Stornetta, Fire Chief. If we go to the next slide, please, Warren. Thank you. We are seeing a significant increase in new cases countywide. Daily case count increases are similar to those we experienced in January of this year. The number of active COVID-19 cases in San Luis Obispo County is now at 1,250, the highest total since January of this year. Active cases have tripled in August and up 30-fold since July 1. Compared to last summer, active cases are 6 times higher than they were exactly 1 year ago. As the last 7 days, 778 cases, new cases have occurred in San Luis Obispo County. This graph here, you can see the SLO County adjusted case rate is at the same level it was in December 2020. The adjusted case rate is rapidly increasing, as you can see reflected to the right of your slide here. We've gone from 19.9% just last week up to, we've almost doubled it to 34% up there. Next slide, please. The chart on the right represents total cases in Paso Robles since June 15th of this year. As you can see, we continue to experience an upward trend in new cases. In the past 30 days, Paso Robles has seen an increase of 421 new COVID-19 cases. Next slide. As of today, 32 people in San Luis Obispo County are hospitalized with COVID-19, and 8 of those are in the ICU. Last week, San Luis Obispo County reported the youngest death of a county resident since the pandemic began. The resident was in the age range of 18 to 29 years old. In a little over a month, San Luis Obispo County has reported 12 deaths. That's compared to a single death in the nearly 2 months from May 17th to July 11th. Hospitalization rates are at levels we haven't seen since the first part of this year. Next slide, please. 98.5% of all cases in San Luis Obispo County are residents 98% are those who are not fully vaccinated. 97.5% of hospitalizations are those that are not fully vaccinated. And 99.2% of all deaths are those who are not fully vaccinated. Next slide, please. Overall, 49.8% of our city residents within 93446 zip code are fully vaccinated. The neighborhoods between Vine Street and Highway 101 start off as the lowest vaccinated tract in the county, and now more than 70% of them are vaccinated. So one of the most vaccinated census tracts in San Luis Obispo County. We expect that this is due to 2.5 months of canvassing, specialized outreach, 4 pop-up clinics in Oak Park, and the CHC clinic, which are all located within that census tract. So great job to our community members at the north end of town. Next slide, please. For those looking to get the vaccine or get tested, you can receive the vaccine at the health department on Walnut, the CHC on Riverside, and then off Nibbuck, the Albertsons and Walmart centers. For testing at Centennial Park, MedPost on First Street here in town, and MedWorks on Posada and Templeton, or Dignity Health on West Mall and Atascadero. And with that, I open it up for any questions.
Thank you very much for that. We appreciate it. This is a presentation. No council action is required. Comments or questions from council? Mr. Hammond?
I'll just make a comment. Chief, it sounds like definitely the fact that people who are getting COVID are the ones that are unvaccinated. I think that's really, really something that needs to be stressed out there, that if you don't have a vaccine, that you have a really good chance of still picking this up. And of those, it sounds like we're getting a small population going to the ICU, very small, but still, it's something we don't want to have.
Yeah, I think it's important to note too, even though you do have the vaccine, that it doesn't prevent you from being a carrier. So to those out there that think they have the vaccine, they can still be exposed and they're out in the community more without the masks, that the chances are still there, the odds are still there that you can get someone else sick.
I've heard a couple people who have had the vaccine still have gotten it or been involved with it. So are they starting to talk about a third dose? What's the word on that?
Actually, some literature just came out yesterday approving a third dose. So I would expect there to be more information coming out shortly.
Kind of like a flu shot every year, so you think might be in order?
There's a lot of debate about that, so I don't have a final answer for you yet.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
So just a couple of other comments. At no expense to taxpayers, I prepared a public service program featuring my position talking about the benefits and risks of vaccination. That can be found at the city website. It's also on my mayor's blog site. It's also been sent to all the media. In addition to the statistics regarding those who are unvaccinated becoming ill and those being unvaccinated perishing, one of the double-edged swords about what's happening right now is that just as when you take a flu vaccine, there's always a chance you could still get the flu, but you're not going to get the symptoms as bad. There is a very small percentage of people who get vaccinated who do, in fact, get infected with COVID. And the downside to that is if you don't notice that you have COVID, you can still spread it. So it's really important for us to get vaccinated because that does yield a great deal of protection, and also to continue observing universal infection controls, hand washing, face masks, and social distancing. And I think the proof is in the pudding. During the period of time prior to the Delta variant, we saw, as you saw from the charts earlier tonight, a tremendous decrease in the infections. And I think the faster that we get a majority of our population vaccinated, the sooner that we're all going to be able to breathe a true deep sigh of relief and move on from this. So appreciate the information. For our second presentation tonight, we have the Elks Public Safety Night recognition. John, got your name on this? Well, somebody's prepared. I just read them as I see them.
Yeah. Good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of the council, members of the community. My name is Keith Boyd, and I'm a member of the local Paso Robles Elks Lodge. And in my role there, I serve as what we call the Loyal Knight. In essence, it's like a second vice president. With me tonight, I have Paul Bennett, who is our exalted ruler, our president of our lodge. And, you know, we took over, this lodge season began in April of this year, and one of the goals of the Elks Lodge, with hopefully the expansion of community outpouring, getting involved in the community, with the reduction of COVID protocols, hopefully that we can get past this Delta variant, but is getting the community together and bringing the community together to continue to do good. And that's a focus of what the Elks does. And one of our goals as we began our lodge season was to recognize the men and women of public safety in this community. It's been a trying few years here in Paso when you think about what our local law enforcement agency has gone through, what our fire department has day-to-day dealt with, especially during this pandemic season, but also when you think about wildland fires striking our state, that strike teams, that staff from the fire department will go out and also aid on. With that, we undertook a daunting process to bring everybody together on short notice, and we had a public safety benefit night in June of this year, June 18th, with the goal specifically to raise funds to give back to the police department and the fire department to benefit their training and equipment needs for them to use at their discretion. We brought together about 150 people from the community with sponsors from our local business community and donors from throughout the community for auction purposes, raffle, and silent auctions. As the evening progressed, it was a pretty powerful night to see the support that was being given to recognize for our public safety here in Paso. And as a result of that evening, we were able to raise for the fire department and the police department. So before I mention that, I'd like Chief Lewis, if he doesn't mind, and Chief Stornetta to come up here and stand out front here with us. And I'm going to give the certificates here to Paul to present to him. And then, and I'll explain it. But we raised $5,774.50 that will go to each department. So this community came together to raise over $11,000 for its public safety agencies. And so I'm pretty sure I talked about it a lot tonight. Nobody said that. But webcasting, there we go. So it's a pretty powerful statement, and it's our honor to present this to Chief Stornetta and Chief Lewis to benefit this community, and we look forward to an ongoing future endeavors to also continue that support for both of those agencies. So with that, we'll take a quick picture, but then I'll let Paul say a few words too.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Well, I just want to say as the exalted ruler of Paso Robles Lodge, it was an honor and a privilege to be able to raise these funds to help our community.
Thank you. Thank you. Actually, I want to thank you. And after we learned of these funds, we've already identified where we'd like to spend them. And we're going to put them back in the community and purchase automatic defibrillators to place throughout areas downtown for people so they can utilize in medical emergencies. So thank you very much.
That's great.
We want to say thank you too. We live in a great community that takes care of its first responders, and this is just another example of it. So thank you very much for all the hard work and effort you put into that fundraiser for us. Thank you both.
Thank you.
Well done.
Next up, we have our Caltrans presentation. Mr. Curry.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and council members, staff and members of the public. Gus Corey here, Corey Consulting, the city's legislative advocate. Just wanted to provide you this evening with an update with respect to the state budget and where we are with respect to our task of trying to address our infrastructure needs with the city. And so we did prepare a board memo that should be in your packet that's getting pulled up right now. So on June 15th, the legislature did vote on legislation in order to meet their constitutional deadline of getting a budget to Governor Newsom. However, there are some outstanding issues. The state, it was a 180 from where we were last year at this time, where the state was facing a $53 billion deficit. We now have a it's actually $75.6 billion surplus. And there could actually be some additional money that's come in since the budget was acted upon. Something around about $5 billion is my understanding, although that has yet to be verified. The legislature came back from its summer recess on Monday, and so they will work until September 10th in order to work on outstanding issues pertaining to the state budget, and then they'll adjourn for the year. The regular session will adjourn for the year. So some of the items of interest with respect to infrastructure, there was quite a bit of money that the governor and legislature had put into the budget bills, but it's still contingent upon a deal on high-speed rail and getting the $4.2 billion appropriated. The legislature put in $2.6 billion for transit rail, transit and intercity rail funding. We've talked in the past about having a prospective stop in Paso Robles, and so there is a program to help accomplish that. But this funding, along with funding for the active transportation program, which funds bicycle and pedestrian projects, that is subject to the legislature agreeing on the $4.2 billion for high-speed rail. It's a big three negotiation, meaning that the Assembly Speaker, the Senate President Pro Tem, and the Governor are engaged in those conversations as to whether or not that money is to be appropriated. And for us as a city, we've been trying to work with our legislative delegation to try to entertain an opportunity to fund some priorities for the city. And so in speaking to Senator John Laird and Assemblymember Jordan Cunningham, there is a pot of money. It's $1.1 billion that's materialized through interest that accrues when the state invests the various pots of money, general funds, special funds, into higher yielding interest-bearing accounts. And so the proposal that we had was that funding be used to supplement the active transportation program so that projects such as Creston Road, which just missed the cut back in March when the California Transportation Commission had allocated funding. They received well over $2.2 billion worth of requests. They were only able to fund $450 million. And so the legislature tentatively has $500 million in the budget that could be made available and could prospectively fund the Creston Road project. So it's hard to say right now where the negotiations are. They just came back from recess, and there's a litany of other issues: wildlife, fire prevention. Wildfires have stoked conversations about fire prevention and what to do with those resources. But the bigger issue for us is what's concurrently happening with the administration, and that's on July 12th. The California State Transportation Agency, known as CalSTA, which Caltrans is under, has adopted the governor's climate action plan for transportation infrastructure. And this is off of Governor Newsom's successive executive orders that attempt to reduce greenhouse gas emissions, limit highway capacity projects in order to try to encourage more mode shift, and remove our reliance upon single occupant combustion engine vehicles to facilitate our transportation needs. And for obvious reasons, it's not a cookie cutter solution, particularly for the city, given that we don't have quite the same density as San Francisco or Los Angeles, with being able to deliver the same amount of rail service, the short headways. We have a tremendous amount of truck traffic that goes through along the Highway 46 corridor. We have significant safety concerns with collisions along Highway 46 as well. So we've been working collaboratively with Caltrans in order to establish parallel routes within the corridor in order to encourage more local traffic within the city limits off of Highway 46. We're working on environmental documents to that end to prepare ourselves for prospective Senate Bill 1 competitive grant submittals. But this new document that's been adopted by the administration could call things into question, such as doing the interchange project over the Ware Bridge, or Creek, I'm sorry. So we are currently in the process of trying to work with the administration, work with the legislature in order to ensure that we still qualify to receive funding, and any projects that we wind up developing, which take a tremendous amount of time and resources, will be viewed upon fairly. And to be more specific with that is, I know that the Public Works Department has been working hard at projects that try to reduce greenhouse gas emissions. But the other component that the CAPTI document looks at is reducing vehicle miles traveled, which again is not necessarily realistic given our geography, given travel patterns that happen within our area. And so we're looking for our legislative delegation to try to assist us in that endeavor. So things are pretty fluid, and we'll continue to keep you posted upon progress that we make. One bit of good news that we wanted to report is that the city given its local sales tax measure, we are now recipients of a state local partnership program grant. We receive about $200,000 annually. Over a cycle, it's $600,000 that you could use in order to address some of your infrastructure needs. And should the city decide prospectively to renew the sales tax measure, then we would continue to receive the 200, including a one-time $5 million bonus for passing the measure. So, Mr. Mayor, that concludes my report, and I'm happy to answer any questions that you or the council may have.
Very good. Thank you very much. Again, this is a presentation item. No action is required of the council. Council comments or questions? Anyone? Mr. Strong, you're online.
Yes. And Gus, my question is, you mentioned the capacity issue, but isn't safety still the highest issue if that's what the Highway 46 overbridge is and over the Creek Bridge?
Yeah, Councilmember Strong. So I think the department could be better suited to answer that question, but they're looking at different metrics. It's no longer about level of service, which was always a variable that was considered with respect to planning. And so CalSTA believes that they have other options that could compel safety outcomes without having to build out the highway system, which would also increase maintenance costs along the state highway system. But, clearly, we have a pretty important mission here of trying to improve safety along the Highway 46 corridor, which I know that Caltrans is well aware of, and they've been working closely with Public Works staff on that endeavor.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. A member of comment of the public would like to comment. Mr. Guston?
Dale Guston, 945 Spring Street. I've been concerned about the circulation in the city for a long time. I think he mentioned something about Crescent Road. I think we need to revisit whether or not Crescent Road should be 4 lanes entirely inside the city limits up to the freeway. And also, I have concerns about the 46 corridor east. I have that concern for a long time. Ever since they abandoned the Loop Road, I've been advocating for reducing the speed coming into the city as far back as Jardine and considering installing a signalized intersection at Airport Road, such as we have at Buena Vista. And those are my concerns.
Thank you, sir. Is there anyone else in the room who would like to comment on the presentation? Is there anyone on the phone who would like to comment?
No, sir.
Very good. We will move on now with the next item on our agenda. General public comments. This is a time set aside for the public to address the council on items within their purview that are not on the agenda tonight. If you're here for an item on the agenda, there'll be a separate time set aside for that when we get to that. When you make public comment, please begin by stating your name. You're limited to 3 minutes. Any person or subject requiring more than 3 minutes may be scheduled for a future council meeting or referred to committee or staff. And those persons wishing to speak on any item scheduled on the agenda, again, will be given an opportunity to do so at the time that item is being considered. So general public comments, welcome.
Thank you. Linda Plesha, Paso Robles resident and Recreation Services Manager. Good evening, council members. Thank you for approving our work with the Center for Organization Effectiveness to prepare a 5-year strategic plan for recreation services. We have had several meetings with staff and stakeholders, and we are inviting everyone that has something to say to join us in co-creating the future of recreation services. We believe that recreation services play a vital role in maintaining and sustaining a sense of connection, community, and quality of life. As a part of our 5-year plan, we want your voices, input, and feedback to be the foundation of all that we do and offer to the city of Paso Robles. We welcome you to join us on Wednesday, August 18th, that's tomorrow night, from 5 to 7 p.m. for an evening of intentional connectivity, creativity, and fun. This session will be facilitated by representatives of the Center for Organization Effectiveness, where they will create an engaging space to voice your opinion and provide ideas that will help shape current and future services, events, facilities, and engagement in our community. Please join us on August 18th from 5 to 7 p.m. right here in Council Chambers in City Hall at 1000 Spring Street. The center will also be hosting a booth at the Concert in the Park on Thursday, August 19th at 6 p.m. to continue the conversation. Please stop by and share your thoughts and ideas. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Do we have any other general public comments? Anyone online?
No, sir.
Thank you. We'll close general public comment, move on with our agenda. I'll ask the city manager if we have any agenda items to be deferred tonight.
No, sir.
Thank you. We proceed with our consent calendar. Items on the consent calendar considered routine, not requiring separate discussion. However, if discussion is wanted by a member of the council or the public, the item may be removed from the consent calendar and considered separately. Council members and members of the public may offer comments or ask questions of clarification without removing an item from the calendar. Individual items are approved by the vote that approves the consent calendar unless an item has been pulled for separate consideration. Items pulled from the consent calendar are generally heard at the end of the meeting. And I have a request from the city manager that item number 20 be pulled for separate consideration. With that, any other questions or removals from the council?
Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
I would like to make a statement about item 19 before you vote on it.
Sure.
Parcel as the option parcels, that was a prior conversation. The actual option parcel is 1.6 acres. The correct exhibit is in your package, and that includes the southwest corner of the park, the restroom building, and the skate park.
Thank you. Is there anyone in the public who would like to ask a question of clarification or have an item removed? Yes, sir.
Yes, Dale Gustin, 945 Spring Street. And in addition to 19, which I think is too significant to be considered on the consent agenda, despite the explanation by our interim city manager, I think it should be a full report. And I also think the same thing of 15. I think both those items are too significant to be considered on the consent agenda.
Items number 19 and number 15 have been pulled from the consent calendar. Anyone else? Anyone on the phone?
No, sir.
In that case, I'll bring it back to the council and entertain a motion for the balance of the consent.
I'll make a motion.
Yes, please.
I move we approve items 4 to 14, 16, 17, 18, 20, 21 on the consent agenda.
Second by Strong.
Motion by Councilman Gregory, second by Councilman Strong. Roll call vote, please.
Councilmember Gregory?
Aye.
Councilmember Strong?
Aye.
Councilmember Garcia?
Aye.
Councilmember Hammond?
Aye.
Mayor Martin?
Aye. Motion passes 5-0. Before we move on, for the listening public, I would like to ask the city manager to please give us a report on the items taken on the consent calendar so people know what decisions have been made.
Mr. Mayor, members of council, the agenda item, consent calendar agenda items that were just approved by council included item 4, which is the approval of city council meeting minutes. Item 5, which is a receipt of the warrant register city expenses for the month of July. Item 6 is the receipt of meeting minutes from the Development Review Committee and the Planning Commission. Item 7 was setting fiscal year 21-22's general obligation bond tax rate. That's the annual tax rate for your 1998 issued general obligation bonds. Item 8 was approval of a grant agreement between the city and the FAA for use for $59,000. It's the airport rescue grant, similar to the city's ARPA grant. The airport actually qualified for rescue funds in the amount of $59,000. Item 9 is the reclassification of a vacant position in the Public Works Department to a supervisor position in order to better address the workload and changing needs of our Public Works Department. So we're taking a vacant position, we're at a lower level, and we're creating a supervisor level position, and we will do an internal recruitment to fill that position. Item 10 is a purchase of filtering materials for the surface water treatment facility. Item 11 is the approval of a professional services agreement for Todd Groundwater to address issues the state has identified in our draft groundwater sustainability plan. Item 12 is the approval of an amendment in the agreement between the city and the firm that wishes to construct the solar farm airport solar project. There were some fairly minor changes to the agreement to address the change in the firm's name and the actual size of the solar field, the output of the solar field. Item 13 is the approval of a purchase of a vacuum excavator truck, which will be used for excavations and pumping by our Public Works Department. Item 14 is an amendment, an approval of a contract amendment with Oasis Associates. That's the professional planning firm that's working on the city's behalf on the landing project, and those fees that are due to this contractor are being paid for by the developer. Item 16 is the addition of an arborist to the city's certified arborist list. The arborist name is Haiti Coker. Item 17 is the approval of a number of prior agreements with the owners of the North Chandler Ranch. These all have to do with correcting the alignment, the future alignment of Airport Road as it travels through the project. Item 18 is the authorization of continuing emergency repairs to Fire Station 2. Item, let's see, 21 is the city applied for a $3.5 million grant through the CARES Act to install 14 miles of high-speed fiber in the city. The grant requires that the city match the funds 20% of the $3.5 million or $707,000, and that the city take action to allocate the funds in case we do receive the grant. So this action is allocating $707,000 from your reserves and identifying them as our match if we are successful in receiving that grant. And that concludes the approved consent calendar items.
Thank you very much. We come now to public hearings. Item number 22, vesting tentative parcel map PR 20-0018 to subdivide a single 6.54 acre parcel into two smaller parcels. Development plan 20-09 for the construction of two 12,462 square feet buildings and associated parking and yard areas. Conditional use permit 21-19 for the establishment of contracted services, uses, and a private wastewater permit for two on-site wastewater treatment systems, septic systems at 3051 Union Road. This has been continued from August the 3rd. Staff report, please.
Thank you, Mayor Martin and council members. This is Katie Bannister, Assistant Planner. As you noted, this project was first heard at the August 3rd meeting, and at that time, the council had questions about funding of long-term sewer infrastructure that will be needed in this area of the city. City staff has worked with the applicant to provide additional conditions to address council's concerns. So here's a quick summary of the project. As we discussed previously, this project is on the eastern eastern boundary of the city on Union Road, just northeast of Barney Schwartz Park. Next slide. So here's the site plan. This is rotated 90 degrees, so north is now to the right. There would be a subdivision map that would create parcel 1 and parcel 2 of each just a little bit more and less than 3 acres. Each site would receive an industrial building with outside yards. There is a drainage that has jurisdiction. The different agencies, both state and federal agencies, have jurisdiction over that creek, and so there was an environmental report prepared for the project. Next slide. This is a perspective drawing of the buildings. They are attractive, well-articulated buildings. You can see at the bottom there's a nice mix of materials. Next slide. So in the area, the infrastructure that I mentioned, Warren, this does have some, thank you. So the there are some improvements that have been put in. That sort of orange long line towards the left of the slide is a sewer line that has been put in as a part of the Union Road improvement. There is a future lift station, and that is the piece of the project that the council wanted to make sure that the applicant did pay a fair share towards that piece of infrastructure. The blue line there is a piece of sewer line that's been put in by the neighbor, and the red is what the applicant for this particular project would need to install. Next slide. So as I said, we've worked with the applicant to add some additional conditions. These are reflected in both resolutions B and C. In resolution B, conditions 31 has been amended to include that any special city council fees would also be paid at time of connection. And the condition 32 would be that the applicant would not protest a future establishment of an assessment district or a reimbursement agreement to fund that sewer lift station. Next slide. Staff's recommendation is to approve all three resolutions. The first would be to certify the mitigated negative declaration. Resolution B would be to approve the plan development and the conditional use permit. And finally, the third resolution would be to approve the vesting tentative parcel map. And that is the end of staff's report.
Thank you for that report. Any questions of staff from council? Mr. Hammond.
Yeah, Katie, on the sewer line that the applicant would have to put into the road, is obviously sized for future use coming out of Chandler and heading toward the lift station?
I'll let Mr. Athey, who's on the line, answer that question.
Hi, Councilman Hammond. At this point, the line is sized as an 8-inch sewer. We don't know the exact sewer shed for the North Chandler Ranch. So when that project comes in, the location of this proposed sewer is off the edge of Union Road. And so it'll be easy to, if they had to upgrade it or come in a different direction if they're on the west side of the Barney Schwartz Park down into the proposed lift station site. So little ways to go before we decide the size of that future sewer or know what it needs to be.
Okay. All right. That's all I had. Thank you, Matt.
Any further questions from council? Mr. Strong, any questions?
No, Mr. Mayor, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for that information. We'll open it for public comment. All rules apply. Mr. Guston, welcome.
Dale Guston, 945 Spring Street. I only have a concern about number one action. I don't think it's adequately addressed the circulation as it relates to Highway 46. And I also, in looking at the map on the extension of the sewer line, the map doesn't show that it goes to the edge of the property line. I think it should.
Thank you. Are there any other public comments? Anyone online?
No, sir.
We'll close public comment, bring it back to the council. Do we have a comment from staff on those two questions regarding the impact on traffic circulation on Highway 46 and the completeness of the map of the project?
Hi, Mr. Mayor, David Athey, City Engineer. So in terms of the traffic circulation, this size of project does not rise to the level of requiring a project-specific traffic report. It generates much less than 100 peak hour trips per day. It's going to be used as a contracting yard. Currently is set up to be used for that. Any intensification of use through the CUP process will have to be approved by council, and so that would take care of the Union Road. Union Road itself has plenty of capacity. In terms of extending the sewer, this is currently the end of the city. We typically don't extend the sewer line further than we have to in these cases. It will have to go beyond the blue line that's shown on the screen. And it comes out of that yellow box on Union Road. It'll have to go beyond that, in which case it'll be fully available to the Chandler Ranch project to connect in the future.
Okay, unless I misunderstood Mr. Guston felt that the map was not accurate. Is that right, Dale?
Yeah.
So, Mr. Athey, the question is the map of the project accurate? It doesn't seem to extend to the property limit.
The red portion appears to only go halfway across the parcel instead of all the way across.
Okay, I think that's what he was addressing as the sewer line. Yeah, so I think we're good on that. Okay, so those questions have been answered. It's back to the counselor if there are no, Mr. Gregory.
I'm prepared to make a motion.
Okay, we have 3 separate actions that have to be taken. Go ahead.
I move we approve Resolution A, certifying the mitigated negative declaration prepared for the project.
Second.
Motion by Councilman Gregory, second by Councilman Hammond. No further discussion. Roll call vote, please.
Councilmember Gregory?
Aye.
Councilmember Hammond?
Aye.
Councilmember Garcia? Aye. Councilmember Strong?
Aye.
Mayor Martin?
Aye, motion passes 5-0.
I move we approve Resolution B, approving the plan development 20-09 and the conditional use permit 21-19, including a private wastewater permit.
Second.
Motion by Councilman Gregory, second by Councilman Hammond. Roll call vote, please.
Councilmember Gregory?
Aye.
Councilmember Hammond?
Aye.
Councilmember Garcia? Aye. Councilmember Strong?
Aye.
Mayor Martin?
Aye, motion passes 5-0.
I move we approve Resolution C, approving the vesting tentative parcel map PR 20-0018.
Second.
Motion by Councilman Gregory, second by Councilman Hammond. Roll call vote, please.
Councilmember Gregory?
Aye.
Councilmember Hammond?
Aye.
Councilmember Garcia? Aye. Councilmember Strong?
Aye.
Mayor Martin?
Aye, motion passes 5-0. Thank you. Item number 23, conditional use permit 21-17, then 13-Ruben Anthony Arroyo, the applicant, 1244 Pine Street, Unit C, consideration of a recommendation from the Planning Commission to approve a conditional use permit for a wine bar within an existing commercial building with the determination that public convenience or necessity would be served by the issuance of a Type 42 license by the California Department of Alcoholic Beverage Control. Staff report, please.
Good evening. This is Lori Wilson, Assistant Planner, and I'll be taking us through the staff report for VIN 13 Wine Bar. You can go ahead and skip to the next slide, please. So the request before us tonight is to establish a wine bar. This is in an existing commercial building at 1244 Pine Street for VIN 13. The use does require a Type 42 ABC license, which is for bars and taverns, as well as a public convenience or necessity determination. Site's located in between Railroad and Pine, facing 13th Street. You'll see the particular unit in question on the upper right-hand side of your screen there. Neighboring businesses right now are a fabric store to the east and then a tasting room to the west. The units that you see located on the second floor are currently commercial offices. So the site's in our TC1 zoning district, which does allow for bars and cocktail lounges with the conditional use permit. The VIN 13 wine bar is very similar to the other tasting rooms downtown. The difference with this business is that they do intend to offer a variety of both local and international wines. So because they aren't offering just one particular winery, it does kick them into a wine bar use as opposed to just a tasting room, which requires the conditional use permit. So the intent of the use permit is to make sure that it's compatible with its neighbors. As part of the Type 42 ABC license process, ABC also sends out an additional notification to any residences within 100 feet. As I understand it, there was just one that had to be notified, and they did not come forward with any questions or comments, concerns regarding this project. The wine bar intends to operate during the weekdays from 10 to 11 p.m. and then on the weekends from 10 to midnight. Mr. Arroyo, the applicant's on the line. He can certainly speak more to their business plan, but as I understand it, generally from 10 to 5, they intend to offer educational experiences in regards to tasting and wine, and then in the evening hours, more of a wine bar type of a use. They do want to have the ability to have the occasional guitar player and, of course, some digital background music. But there has been a condition added to the permit that would restrict any sort of outdoor amplified music. So we currently have 6 additional Type 42 licenses, so the bar and tavern type of a license in our downtown area right now. And I've listed them just for reference there for you, a few being Hotel Cheval, Wine Boss, the Poorhouse, etc. So the staff's recommendation tonight for the project is to approve the project by approving Resolution A, approving conditional use permit 2117, subject to the specific conditions of approval, and approving Resolution B, the determination of the PCN, that would be a necessity served by the issuance of this Type 42 license for VIN 13. So that does conclude staff's presentation. Happy to answer any questions. And as I mentioned, we do have the applicant on the line to assist as well. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Do we have council questions of staff? No. Mr. Strong? I'll take that as a no. We'll open this for public comment. Anybody would like to comment on this item? This is your opportunity. Please come to the microphone.
There, I couldn't get the microphone on. No,
okay.
No questions.
No questions. Thank you. Anyone online?
No, sir.
We'll close public comment, bring it back to the council. Mr. Gregory.
I move that we approve the project by taking the following actions. Approve Resolution A, approve the conditional use permit 2117, subject to the site-specific conditions of approval.
Second. Motion by Councilman Gregory, second by Councilman Hammond. Roll call vote, please.
Councilmember Gregory?
Aye.
Councilmember Hammond?
Aye.
Councilmember Garcia?
Aye.
Councilmember Strong?
Aye.
Mayor Martin?
Aye. Motion passes 5-0. Thank you very much. We move now to discussion.
One more, sir. One more.
Excuse me?
I move we approve Resolution B, determining that the public convenience or necessity would be served by the issuance of Type 42 ABC license for the VIN 13 located at 1244 Pine Street.
Second.
Motion by Councilman Gregory, second by Councilman Hammond. My apologies, I didn't see the second action. Roll call vote, please.
Councilmember Gregory?
Aye.
Councilmember Hammond?
Aye.
Councilmember Garcia?
Aye.
Councilmember Strong?
Aye.
Mayor Martin?
Aye. Motion passes 5-0. Thank you. Now we move on. Item number 24, discussion items, downtown parking parklet program. Commander Davis, your name is on this.
Mayor Martin, I need to recuse myself.
Okay, thank you. Councilman Gregory is going to be leaving the room and recusing himself from discussion on this issue.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of the council for having me this evening. Commander Davis, Paso Robles Police Department. I'm just here to report tonight the actions of the Downtown Parking Advisory Commission. They met last week to discuss the downtown parklet program. On that commission with us is Councilmember Hammond, and Mr. Mayor was present as well. The Downtown Parking Advisory Commission was established in March of 2020 by the council to provide the council direction regarding the downtown parking program in the city of Paso Robles. The Downtown Parking Advisory Commission was to look at the goals of the parking program, and those 4 main goals that we continually try to highlight to the commission are these: to manage the on-street demand, to maintain occupancy rates, and to use technology to improve the parking experience, the creation of an employee parking program, and the creation of a sustainable program that will be cost neutral by year 5. Those are the goals that council established for the parking program, and those are the guidelines of which the Parking Advisory Commission attempts to make their decisions towards the council, for the council. With those things in mind, we presented to the Advisory Commission the facts regarding the parklet program with those 4 goals in mind. Currently, the downtown parking area has 458 spaces. However, currently 69 of those spaces are used up, and there are currently only 348 paid parking spaces in our downtown parking area because of the parklets and the short-term parking spaces. We also took into consideration the municipal code 12.42.070, which established a target occupancy rate of 85% for our downtown parking zones. This comes into play because limiting some of those spaces could potentially limit the amount of availability we have and reducing that target rate of 85%, which is what we base our available parking on. The commission met and we discussed those items, and after their conversation and taking into consideration all those facts, the Downtown Parking Advisory Commission unanimously agreed on the three following facts: that the parklet program as currently implemented reduces available on-street parking to the downtown. The addition of the parklets and the concurrent reduction in parking spaces runs counter to the municipal code, which I just said, which establishes a target occupancy rate of 85% for the parking zones. Third, further reduction in available parking will negatively impact the parking program's ability to achieve cost neutrality within 5 years. These are the findings and recommendations of the Downtown Parking Advisory Commission. And here tonight, I was just presenting that to you so that you're aware of their recommendation.
Very good. Thank you. Questions of staff? Anyone? Mr. Hammond?
Just a comment again. Thank you, Caleb. Again, it was a good meeting with the commission, and again, it was good discussion. And again, they came down to the points that coming back down to a level of grounding for their need of being a committee, and that is parking. Again, I question again a little bit the background with regard to quantity and spaces. We 69 of our parklets right now. Again, I think we have made a decision as council that they were going to be removed by December or November 1st, is at the end of October, and that they upheld that decision as well. Not to say that parklets aren't going to be ever talked about again, but for current purposes anyway, that's what the commission did come upon. So just as a report out as well.
Thank you.
Yes, sir. I just have a question on the employee parking program. Was there any new information?
No, ma'am. The employee parking program that we've established, which was one of the goals of the parking program, we started that at the beginning. It is running effectively, and there hasn't been any changes to that.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions, Councilman Strong?
No, sir. Thank you.
Thank you. And before we open this up to the public, I want to let people know that I've had some ex parte meetings with several restaurant owners and with their consultant, Ms. Stacy Jacobs. So we've had those conversations. Thank you, sir. We will open this for public comment. Same rules apply. We invite you to the microphone so you can have your say. Good evening, Mr. Guston.
Dale Guston, 945 Spring Street, also on the Main Street Board, which did put their recommendation in. It didn't come up on the screen, but you have it in your packet, I know. And I was one of the ones that thought it was designed as an emergency thing for to help the restaurants, and that as such, it should terminate as the emergency. I don't believe is any longer in existence, as was pretty much the consensus of the Main Street Board. Also, I still have the big concern about how the city is treating the seniors. I'm 83. My name's on the plaque on the front of the senior building, and I can't get a parking permit as was directed by the commission. And I'm upset by that. I've threatened to sue the city in a class action suit, but I'm hoping the city will avoid that. You remember Mr. Bosch sued the city once before on a fight over the rates on water, and he won. He had to put it to a vote. Well, if this has to go to litigation, I think I have a pretty good chance of winning on behalf of discrimination under the ADA laws. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Welcome.
Hi, my name is Kristen Casillas. My husband and I own Orally Taqueria, located downtown Paso Robles. Just wanted to kind of step back to May, June of this year. As COVID cases declined, I don't know about you guys, but I felt a huge sense of relief, not only as a business owner, also as a mother of two, as, you know, kind of every aspect of my life. And from the business perspective, a big part of that success and having that relief of, you know, we've made it, was really due to the parklets and the community support. So for that, I want to thank the council as well as the community. Fast forward, summer's been great. If you go downtown, the parklets are full. We've been busy, tourism up, people are ready to get out. And, you know, unfortunately, as we heard earlier, with the fire chief giving the update on COVID cases, they're back to an incline. That gives me a little bit of anxiety and stress, not knowing really what the future holds. So, you know, my ask to the council is to consider extending the parklets. I love the idea of keeping them permanent. I think it's a great addition to downtown, but at a minimum, you know, just to reconsider the timing. I don't think, you know, the November 1, right, as cases are going up and we buckle down for the winter is the best timing. I ask at a minimum, we extend it to maybe February or March, just to kind of get through our slow season and unfortunately what's now becoming COVID season. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your comments. Welcome.
Thank you. My name is Christina Aberstein. I am the owner with my husband Andre of Paso Terra Restaurant downtown. So I would like to also address COVID. Clearly by the staff presentation that COVID is very much on the rise here, much to all of our dismay, but it is. So as I understand, during the Parking Commission meeting, there was some comments and remarks made by staff that maybe COVID was gone and that these parklets should be removed because the restaurants didn't need them because there was no more COVID concerns. Clearly, that is not the case. I can speak for myself and many of my fellow restaurateurs that our patrons today all want to dine outside. The more that they hear about COVID, because you cannot turn on any news station anywhere in the country and all they talk about is COVID. So they want to dine outside. What does this mean? You take the parklets away, you take away our customers. They will go elsewhere. Let's not be surprised about that. They will go elsewhere. When we had the fires in Napa, all those people came to us. So understand, we love our tourists. They are our base for our community downtown, but they are not loyal like hopefully our local people are. So we need to be sure that we understand that. These parklets need to stay. They need to stay now because our survival is just uncertain. We don't know what is going to happen. The parklets could be permanent, maybe not, but definitely for the next year for sure, because we just don't know. Secondly, and I think it's really important that the public seem to be misguided and misunderstood that we think, restaurant owners, that we are going to be treated specially. No, we're going to pay for those parklets, of course. We've already, as you know, Mr. Mayor, we have outlined this to you many times, that we are prepared to pay yearly fees. Of course, we already pay our sales tax revenue to the city, which will only continue more so. We are prepared, all of us, to adhere to any of the aesthetic requirements made by city and by Main Street so that we have a unified and beautiful downtown. We all want that. So we really ask you, please, to reconsider our future, because our future is the future of downtown. Without the restaurants, guess what? There's no shopping. Because people, if they're going to go to San Luis, where they're approved, by the way, they will shop there, they will eat there, they will drink there, they will spend their money there or elsewhere. So please, I ask you, I beg you, for us to reconsider your position. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your comments. Good evening.
Good evening. My name is Andre Aversen, owner with my wife of Paso Terra Restaurant. And we really appreciate the fact that you give us the opportunity to put those parklets for us after a year of restriction and difficult time for everybody. We did appreciate that. For us, it was like a release. It was more like a sign of a positive encouraging sign for the future. We saw those tourists coming to us because some other place they were having restriction. And what I can say is the fact that those people, they were able to come to our place. I mean, I'm talking about Paso Robles, and have a choice of going to a winery, choice to going to a restaurant, and also enjoying the area over here. We have appreciate the fact that the city gave us this particular option for us to survive. It was really a little difficult, but like my wife said, if we remove those parklets, those people, like they came from Napa when it was a fire, they came from the north, they will not come here knowing that the fact that we have not any seating on the outside, because even now, even we are open, we see people still requesting the fact to sit outside. They don't feel really comfortable yet. Now, with the sign of the COVID, that it's good to come back, it's good to be there, you are going to ask us to remove those parklets that cost us, that cost us a lot of money. And then to say that maybe in the future we can put them back, I mean, who can afford that, Now, as regarding the tax revenue for the city, yes, those people, they are not going to come over here if you have a restriction. They are going to go to San Luis Obispo, in which the city has approved to keep those parklets, Then, of course, if they are in San Luis Obispo, they are not going to come back here in the North County. They are going to stay there to have the retail working, expending money over there and all the wineries, so on. And then this is where I see the issue also. Then what I will say, like my wife requested, don't take those parklets away because maybe too soon. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
My turn.
It's your turn.
My name's Doug Beckett. I live on Nacimiento Lake Road. I've been a resident of Paso for over 40 years now. I'm a local businessman. My sons are now running that business. And I own property on 12th Street, downtown Paso Robles. And I support the parklets 100%. I think, and not on a permanent basis at this time, I think we're being a little bit short-sighted when we look at what's happening in California and we say that can't happen here. If we take away those parklets, we're going to see a lot of restaurants go out of business the first time they shut us down again. No indoor dining. And the other thing I'm seeing is people that are eating indoors, they don't want to sit close to each other anymore. So even the restaurants that have indoor dining have had to do more spacing, cuts down on their occupancy, and obviously cuts down on their revenue. What I would propose is that the city consider a temporary use of the parklets, maybe even to the point where we have a design committee, a review committee that looks at them, get rid of some of those ugly barricades, make it look nice, and start dealing with and accommodating the tourists that are coming to Paso Robles, because Paso is a world-class destination. We've got world-class wineries. We've got restaurants that are out of this site that are beautiful, and people want to come here. And it's not the tourists that are complaining. It's the locals that have lost a parking spot or want some free parking or don't want to have to pay or whatever. But the tourists that are coming from out of town are saying, what a great spot. I'll never go back to Napa. I'll never go back to Sonoma. We've got it all here, and we shouldn't take that away. And I would urge the city council to at least allow for one more year on a temporary basis and give these restaurants a shot just in case the state of California, which apparently doesn't know what's up or down, shuts everything down again. And then what are we going to do with all these locals that are out of business? So please consider, please look to the future of Paso Robles. To give up parking for one more year is not going to cost us anything. And to put off the payback for another year isn't going to hurt us a bit. But what we may do is we may save some people that are employing a lot of locals. They're serving tourists and drawing more people. And they're creating a Paso Robles that many of us came here for, and many of us will never leave. So please consider leaving the parklets. I don't have one in front of my building. I've got them next door, and they don't bother me a bit. And I see them full. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, council members. My name is Dana Stroud. I'm here representing the Paso Robles Chamber of Commerce and their board of directors. They held their July board meeting and discussed the topic of parklets as part of their discussion and deliberation. Tonight, we'd like to share their comments as reported from their meeting. First of all, we'd like to acknowledge the city's decisive action that was taken last summer to create the parklets on a short-term and temporary basis. That action allowed many of our restaurants to survive during the shutdown and as part of the recovery when visitation was allowed to begin happening again in Paso Robles. We want to acknowledge and thank the council for that action and for creating the opportunity for those temporary parklets to be installed. However, as beneficial as those parklets have been to the downtown restaurants, they have created challenges that need to be addressed before the city considers allowing permanent installation of parklets. We'd like to offer the following minimum criteria for possible permanent improvements. First of all, there needs to be a review and enhanced pedestrian access to ensure that ADA requirements and public safety needs are addressed and met. Secondly, we'd like to offer that design guidelines must be developed that embrace and uphold the aesthetics, as were referenced earlier, and character of downtown. Mr. Beckett acknowledged the look of some of those temporary safety barriers may not be contributing to the overall aesthetics. And so we believe that there needs to be a review and development of design guidelines that represent the character of downtown Paso Robles. Additionally, we'd like to consider the visibility for the restaurants and their neighboring merchants need to be considered on an equal basis. As we've seen the parklets go up and facilities take on different sizes, the neighboring merchants have been negatively impacted, and so we would recommend consideration for how everyone's visibility is addressed if parklets are installed. As has been addressed and was noticed by the Parking Commission, we recommend that installations should result in little to no loss of parking spaces. And finally, a review of critical infrastructure such as stormwater drainage and traffic routing should be considered as a part of any consideration for permanent installation of these facilities. Should the council consider moving forward in the future with considering these permanent facilities, we encourage the utilization of local resources, community engagement, and partner organizations to be a part of solutions for this effort. Thank you.
Thank you very much. More public comment. Welcome.
Thank you. My name is Billy Grant, local business owner, and I guess I live in Passerby, maybe the Edge over there in the Ducey Vineyard. I've had to follow Doug Beckett before, and he, as usual, he stole my thunder. A lot of the things that Doug had mentioned, I'd like to echo. I think that I saw the parklets when they came in as an opportunity for the city to evolve, for the park to evolve. One of the downsides to the park has been for years, and I've been here for 17 years, is it's car city down there. It's people going around in circles over and over and over looking for a parking place, which I'll get back to. Taking away parking places doesn't really fit that. However, it's just exhaust over and over and over. So if you're walking on the streets, you're going to a store, you're trying to have dinner, you got cars in your face 24/7 down there, all the way around the park. I think that the whole opportunity of the parklets and seeing this idea that we need to expand our dining, people don't want to eat indoors. They just don't. They come to our wineries, they tell us, where can I go, where can I eat outdoors? I'm not comfortable eating indoors, or I just don't like eating indoors. Or the restaurants don't have as many tables indoors. This is going to go on for years, by the way. This is not a thing. I think most of you probably understand at the rate that we're currently vaccinated across this country, this is a 5-year plan. This isn't a next couple of months plan. It's a 5-year plan. This thing's going to just roll around the planet, roll around the United States. And we're going to keep coming back to this issue that our restaurants can't accommodate the people who are coming to visit us. We need those people to visit us because they're creating tax revenue. Those extra tables are creating tax revenue for you. I mean, 3 parklets should produce about, based on the analysis I've done, about $40,000 a year in city revenue. That's not bad. It's better than $2 an hour. The other thing that I think you should consider is that the more we have pedestrian traffic and less traffic, the more attractive it is to come to the park. And all of the Main Street people benefit from that. And I've talked to many of the shop owners. I'm not sure which ones are on the Main Street group and association that said they didn't want to do this, but in 2 different surveys that I've been aware of, 80% of the public says they want to keep it. I don't know anything in the world where 80% of the people say the same damn thing. That's insane. When's the last, probably what? February 8th, December 8th, 1941, the last time 80% of the people agreed on anything. I think that we need to take a much stronger look at this. We need a lot more research. We also have to ask ourselves, why are cities up and down the state, across the country, in the same situation we are, tight parking? We got tight parking. We all complain about it all the time. And I don't think our employee thing, whatever's happening, is working because I found 5 cars, all owned by 5 people working at one shop today, parked all day long on the park. So something about that isn't working, just so you all know. But I do think that we need to take a little more time, be a little more thoughtful, and ask ourselves, how did San Luis come up with their decision? How does Santa Barbara come up with their decision? How does Burlingame come up with their decision? How does Redwood City come up with their decision? These are people with significantly more analysis, significantly more resources. Why don't we go around and talk to them and find out how they came up with what they came up with before we make a big decision? November 1st is just way too soon because we are seriously not out of the woods yet, guys.
Thank you very much. Anyone else like to speak? Do we have anyone online?
Yes, sir. Our first caller is Edgar Torres.
Welcome.
You can say our name. Yeah, hi, can you hear me?
We can.
Fantastic. Yeah, my name is Edgar Torres. My husband and I are here tonight to strongly encourage the mayor and the city council to extend the downtown parklet program. As several other speakers have mentioned tonight, with the surge of the highly transmissible Delta variant, really ending the parking program at this time makes no sense at all. We need as many outdoor dining options as possible to help reduce the spread of COVID-19 and to help keep our restaurants open. The business owners here in Paso Robles are, struggling. They've been struggling for a while now. We are also business owners in Paso Robles, and we regularly enjoy patronizing many of our downtown amazing restaurants. The restaurants downtown are truly the heart of our downtown community, and as I said, they've been struggling for almost two years now. We're fearful that if the parklet program is ended as planned, that these businesses will be unable to survive. Despite the belief of some people, this pandemic is definitely far from over, and outdoor dining will remain the safest option for our customers and employees of our local restaurants for the foreseeable future, especially as vaccination rates have not yet reached herd immunity and the new, more contagious variants of the virus continue to emerge. Again, please do not end the parking program as planned. The parklets greatly enhance our downtown environment and experience. As many people have mentioned, people want to eat outdoors. By eliminating parklets, we are putting our local restaurants at significant risk of financial ruin, thereby endangering the employment of a great number of local workers and creating significant negative economic harm to our community. Thank you for your time, Erica and Edgar Torres.
Thank you for calling.
Next caller is Carol McDonald.
Welcome.
Hi, can you hear me?
We can.
I'm sorry I'm not there in person, but a family matter required me to be out of town. And as you all know, I've been a very vocal and passionate voice in favor of keeping the parklets since the beginning of the year. We as a group of restaurants and tasting rooms have presented a plan to each of you, the council members and the mayor, and addressed the challenges and concerns for the parklets. First and foremost, regardless of what anyone thinks, COVID has not gone away. And as a result, some of our restaurants are not at 100% inside, as many of our guests, locals and tourists alike, do not want to sit inside with tables as close as they used to be pre-pandemic. We, at both of our restaurants, by the way, my husband and I own Il Cortile and La Cosecha. We at both of our restaurants have 35% of our seating outside, which allows us the 100% seating we used to have before the virus started. Customers request and even insist on sitting outside every day because they are uncomfortable inside. Taking away outdoor seating will reduce our business, which will in turn reduce your sales tax revenue. Taking away outdoor seating is just irresponsible, as the virus is not going to go away soon. As we have all lost a lot in this pandemic, we do not want to return to a situation that once again causes us to lose business, which will in turn lose revenue for the city. Which brings me to the second point, revenue. We've proposed a substantial permit fee for the parklets that could be used as the city deems fit. It could go towards the parking program goals, or wherever you feel best suited for the revenue. Contrary to what has been in the press and inferred at other meetings, we are willing to pay for the spaces we would be using, and not to mention the sales tax revenue. We calculated the revenue the city receives on the tax dollar, that being 2.5 cents per dollar, and it's substantial. With each parklet varying in size, how many seats, how many days they're open, and how many times they turn the seats, we figured the revenue per parklet per year is in a range between $10,000 and $45,000 per parklet. I know there are many versions of what a parking space is worth based on how much is spent in the shops, restaurants, and other taxable revenue. But again, I think it's irresponsible to not consider the constant revenue stream the city would enjoy with the continuation of parklets. And the community wants them. The two surveys that were circulated from the Chamber and Main Street had shown overwhelming support for continuing them, regardless of whether somebody chooses to consider them or not. I understand that today you received a substantial amount of emails for this particular meeting, and the public comment that you've heard so far shows that your constituents want them to stay. And the retail stores I've spoken to, which are many, they want them. The foot traffic alone has benefited all of us, retail, tasting rooms, and restaurants alike. And as we've said, the aesthetics and safety requirements from the city, we are happy to work with you and come to an agreement to make sure that we're following all your guidelines. You can see you've all seen, in my comments, you will see a suggestion for design. So if our downtown outside dining spaces go away, this will become another challenging chapter. The access of dining will be limited, and our opportunity to run a sustainable business will once again be at risk. Please consider bringing this back to council for a balanced conversation to address the concerns discussed and help us to ensure that the current health crisis does not become another economic crisis. Please keep the parklets permanently. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Do we have anyone else online?
Yes, sir. Next caller is John Hawley.
Welcome, John.
Hi, Council. John Hawley from Odyssey World Cafe. I have a few comments. As everyone has said, our customers really love the parklets, and they really like eating outdoors. And put all the tables back inside, which probably...
John, you're breaking up. We're not hearing you.
He dropped off.
Okay, so we've lost connection. He may dial back in. Do we have anyone else?
Next is Sally Reynolds.
Welcome, Sally. Sally?
I'm here.
You're on.
Yes, I am 100% not in favor of the parklets.
They did their job. It's time for them to go. I don't understand why every time the city council brings this up, it's front-loaded with all the owners of restaurants. Of course they want them. Of course they want them. But we have a horrible parking problem. All the cities that were mentioned that have successful parklets have parking garages. 3 to 5 parking garages. We do not. I don't understand why the restaurants want such preferential treatment. They're not the only business here. Everybody has to deal with COVID. And there are things that you can do. If your customers want to eat outside, enhance your takeout. Let them go to the park and eat outside. You don't have to use our public space to serve. You've had it for, 15 months now. You didn't pay taxes. You didn't pay insurance. That's public space, and it needs to be returned to the public for parking. So I don't know why you feel so I don't know why you feel like you have to have it, and the city's going to, if they don't keep the parklets, they're going to close up all the restaurants. That is simply not true. You were successful before. You'll be successful again. It's time to move on. It's time to move on. This is getting so old, and it's the same people online because they want to protect their profits. I get that. But there's a lot of businesses. It's not just about restaurants. It's time to end the program November 1st. People came to my house to sign the petition. We have so many people who do not want parklets. They don't support them. They want them down. So, your flimsy Main Street and chamber surveys, they're not worth anything. They're collected and tallied by the same people that sent them out. You could say anything. So they need to go. It's long overdue. Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have anyone else?
Next caller is Edgar Torres.
Welcome.
Good evening, all. I wanted to chime in because I am a business owner in town. I own Bodega de Edgar in Paso Robles. I started it as a former waiter downtown Paso Robles. Parking has been an issue since I was 22 years old. I just turned 41. That's an ongoing thing that we need to tackle it before some other person with more money comes in and privatizes it and takes the revenue to their own selfish, ambitious ability of maybe pulling it off in the near future instead of us as a city community benefiting from building a structure because we've talked about it for many years. That's one. Number two, I'm 100% slowing down the community a little bit and having a communal aspect of eating outside. I think that COVID is unfortunately still around and we have to deal with it, getting rid of this option for the restaurants that were devastated because as a small business, self-made person in the community, we had to borrow some money last year to survive, and I didn't borrow as much as the restaurants had to borrow. So, we have to give them an opportunity to perform. We have to give them an opportunity to recoup what they had to borrow against. But COVID changed the dynamics even in the wine world. We used to have bars that people can walk up to and just, hold the door, walk in and all that kind of stuff. We all adopted this whole by appointment, sitting down scenario outside. We all had to reinvest our money that we were making last year as well for outside furniture, for outside heaters, to shade structures, to, covering from rain. So we all reinvested the money that we made last year to survive. As I said, I started as a waiter. I've seen the community evolve, and it has continued, and it will continue to evolve. It's just about us being open to supporting one another and understanding that my parents' house that they bought over 18 years ago for $120,000 doesn't exist anymore. And why? Because we're a great, like Mr. Beckett said, we're globally recognized. Everybody wants to come here. Everybody wants to live here. Everybody wants to retire here. So the demand for that has increased. And with that, the demand for parking has increased. But also the demand for eating. We need to accommodate people visiting the area. You know, we have evolved from having about 3 hotels when I first moved into Paso Robles to now having multiple of them. And now having, you know, I used to love sitting at Bistro Laurent early on. But now we have more options to sit outside besides Bistro Laurent, even though we still frequent them. I think that we need to come together, keep supporting each other longer, work with one another. I love another thing that we did as a community, and is, yes, we used the park. I love when we did the whole fencing off of a good section of the park, and we were able to get restaurants to do takeout dinners because they couldn't serve us inside, and go out into the park and eat with friends and eat with family members and customers of ours because we didn't have an inside dining option. So we changed. COVID has changed us, and we've been pivoting on every single turn with this virus. So let's keep the positive side of things because I think we love supporting all the restaurants downtown.
Thank you, sir. That's 3 minutes. Thank you very much for your comments.
Well,
we appreciate it.
Guys, yeah.
Who do we have next?
That's all the callers.
Excuse me?
That's all.
That's all the callers? Okay. And I just want to say, Mr. Hawley, who somehow got disconnected, I think I'm safe in saying that he advocated on behalf of parklets. So, okay, with that, I will close public comment, bring it back to the council for discussion. I didn't hear any questions. I heard a lot of points being made, so that's what we want to discuss right now. Who wants to start off? Mr. Hammond.
Be happy to. I think, again, you know, we've gone over this a little bit before with regard to the reason we did this, and that was, again, to save our restaurants. I mean, you fail, we fail, basically, the way I was looking at it. We used a lot of taxpayer money to help you stay there as well. At this point, I think, you know, we've made a decision that we need to take back these parking spaces, at least through the winter. I'm always open. If something were to happen with regard to the COVID and we got back into the same spin again, I'm open for discussion. But at this point, you've got a year and a half, actually, in recovering the cost of these devices, structures that we also, if we ever go back to, we're going to talk a lot about design and keeping them consistent. It's funny, I was just up in Washington and on Anacortes. They had a very nice parklet design that they were using throughout their city. Consistency, you know, making them look the same. And I think when we do this again, I think we will again, but at this point, there's a lot of things we can change and improve on if we ever go back to this. But currently right now with our parking situation for the wintertime and our Christmas season, I think, again, council's made the decision that we're going to move forward with this. But again, always leave the door open in case we need to. Again, you fail, we fail. That's the way I'm looking.
Thank you. Councilwoman Garcia?
Actually, I would like to extend it to January. We keep getting so many updates from the state saying, just today I heard that they're going to extend till January to wear masks in airport and transportation and things like that. And as you heard from the fire chief that our numbers are going up, the parklets are already out there. I feel that we should extend it through the end of December. But I agree totally with Mr. Hammond that we do need to put something together if we decide to have it permanent. We need to have something that's going to be consistent. I am thankful that Ms. Dana came, Ms. Stroud came from the chamber. I appreciate that. And all those bullet points are a factor: safety, consistency, visibility to your merchants next door. All of those things are definitely, but I do feel that we should extend the parklets till the end of December at least.
Thank you. That's not on the agenda tonight, but thank you for that input. Anything else, Maria?
No, sir.
Councilman Strong?
Yes, actually, I agree in part with both of the previous speakers. I think you know that I've been pretty anti the parklets most of the way through this. But the more I've looked into it, the more I've listened to everybody, I'm a little surprised at trying to get into what they really are talking about. Number one, people don't like the appearance of the current ones. They're very haphazard. There's no consistency. Some people think they look ugly. They think they're intruding and making it dangerous out in the streets. I think we do have to take a different approach as we move forward with these, if we do in the future. In the meantime, I have to agree with Maria that probably it's a good idea to extend this right now because of the situation with COVID at the moment to January at least, and then and keep looking at it on a fairly regular basis and see where we're going and what we're doing, and hopefully actually initiate some actions to design a consistent pattern that's attractive, that is acceptable and safe, and also move to try to improve the amount of parking we have, either by going to more angle parking, maybe some traffic changes. I never thought I'd hear anybody advocate and comment that we obviously need a parking garage. $20 million increase in taxation for the public, I think is maybe something that people aren't going to necessarily want, because then we have ongoing costs on that too, plus the cost of acquiring the land to put that garage on and have it convenient where it'll actually be used and not be a deficit for the city. So I think there's a lot of different things we still have to look at in going forward with this, but there's obviously still some dangers to our restaurants potentially from COVID. And if we're going to look at what the public wants, I think we're all American citizens and we're still part of the United States of America, with every citizen having a right to travel freely and go where they want. And if that's the case, then tourists have a right to come here, and they are citizens too, and probably their opinions should be heard. Just because they're not our citizens in this jurisdiction doesn't mean they're not our fellow countrymen. So those are my thoughts at the moment, and I would not be opposed to some extension of this temporarily and a continuous look at this on where we go as we go forward, whether we keep it in some form or another or not. I'm still open on that. Thank you.
Thank you. So for my comments, I'm going to start off by reminding everyone that what is not on the agenda tonight is extending the parklets. We can't take that action tonight, even if we want to. What we can do, if we want to, is we can put consideration of extending the parklets on a future agenda. So this is, glad to hear your opinions, but we really can't make that motion. I want to start off my comments by talking about the dynamic tension we have between local people and tourists. I'm sure that if you've attended very many council meetings, you've been here evenings when people felt that tourists were being mistreated. And then on another evening, locals are being mistreated. And we have this symbiotic relationship with tourism because it drives so much of the revenues for our city to provide the services for our citizens. But accommodating locals is kind of my job. I mean, I was elected by locals and their welfare has to be first. So when we say it's just the locals complaining, those are our people. So I'm a little sensitive to that. I want to take us back down memory road here. Back when the pandemic broke, and it's been pointed out by a couple of people, the council acted quickly to allow parklets to be put up on the street. We didn't have time to do design hearings. We didn't have time to do all sorts of public discussion. We just did it. We paid for the K-rails to make sure that people in cars didn't plow into people who were eating hamburgers. We helped with some construction costs, not all of them. We paid for propane for heaters. We paid for discounted gift cards for downtown businesses. We administered relief grants. Some of those went to restaurants. So I think we did the right thing because there was an emergency. Your restaurants weren't just challenged. They weren't just put in an inconvenient place. You were shut down. And there was no doubt that you were going out of business unless we did something. And we did it quickly. And some folks would say we did it kind of sloppily, but it was done and it worked. Obviously, we see people eating those parklets, and I don't think any of the restaurants represented here tonight would say, oh, no, that didn't work. Sure wish we hadn't done that, right? So I think that was a pretty good thing. In all the people I've talked to, and honestly, I've talked to a lot of people, and a lot of people have gone out of their way to talk to me about this. And the remarks have been about half and half. Half the people are very much wanting the parklets to come down, half very much want them to stay up. So it's not like we really have that groundswell 85%. You can pick your survey, you can pick the group that circulates it, you can pick the way you report them. But the fact of the matter is, the people that call me up as the mayor, it's about half and half. The people that want them down and people that want them up. But they also bring up a whole bunch of other issues. They bring up issues of design. You know, some of them don't look very good. They bring up issues of liability. If somebody falls and, you know, breaks an ankle, who pays for that? Is the city liable? They bring up the issue of parking. Hey, you know, we went through a couple of years of arguing about parking, and now we have 65 or 70 spaces less. That's not a good thing. Our own parking commission said that. And I believe it was Main Street that brought up the issue of equity. And I interpret that as meaning, is this just for restaurants? Because if we move into the area of leasing taxpayer-funded public facilities to private businesses, well, I think everybody would agree it's only fair that everybody has a shot at that, right? I mean, whether you're a restaurant or not. So a lot of issues around parklets. But for me, and I've shared this with the people I've spoken to, both restaurant people and people who are opposed to parklets, for me, there are three questions that have to be answered before we can move on to any of those questions. The first question is the policy of leasing taxpayer-funded public facilities to private businesses. I'm not saying it's wrong. I'm just saying, is that going to be the city policy from this point forward? That's a policy decision that has to be made. And if that's the case, then certainly we have to work equity into that. If we decide to lease parking spaces to a restaurant, then why shouldn't we lease a parking space to a dress shop? Right? Exactly. So the second question is about parking itself. Do the parklets negatively impact our downtown parking? And that's really the one thing that we actually have a solid recommendation from, and that's our parking commission, who said, absent any value judgment of parklets, the question is, will this hurt downtown parking? And their advice was, yes, it will. And it will delay or make impossible having a parking program that is financially neutral within 5 years, which was our goal. And the third question is, if we pass the first two hurdles and we've heard people here tonight say, we're willing to pay, which is great. But the third question, if we clear those first two hurdles, the third question is, what is a parking space really worth? Is it worth the average sales tax that's generated there? Is it worth the average sales tax plus a percentage of the profit of the store next door, because their parking space is gone now too? It takes some analysis to know what the real value is. And without establishing a rationale for that value, we run the risk of being accused of giving away public assets, of misuse of public funds. And that's a very real concern to people sitting up here. We don't ever want to be accused of misusing public funds or public assets. So the one common thing I've heard all the way through this and prior to this is, whether you're for them or against them, is we want to keep talking about it. We don't want to put it to bed and say goodbye. Councilman Hammond has not said, do away with them regardless. He says, you know, if there's a need, we need to talk about it. We need to work these points out. Councilwoman Garcia has said that. Councilman Strong has said that. And I'm saying that now. The one fly that's been tossed back into the ointment since we started this conversation, we were all so busy celebrating the fact that our infection rate went so low, we could see that light at the end of the tunnel. We were headed for it. And now our numbers, because of the Delta variant of COVID, are going up in the county again. For that reason alone, I would entertain the notion, if the council wants to bring it back, to extend the length of time that we have parklets downtown, because it would be a tremendous loss of momentum and resources if we did in fact take them down too soon, and then COVID resurged strongly, and all of a sudden we're back in purple tier and red tier and orange tier. So I think that's a consideration. So to recap, concerned about the locals, even Stephen on the comments that I'm getting for and against parklets, a lot of issues to be talked about, but I got three questions that have to be answered. And the only way we can really answer those, I think, is to agendize this for a discussion about those questions and whether or not parklets should be extended, and if so, how long, and what should be done during that extension period of time. So that's my opinion. John.
I'll weigh back in there a little bit. I totally agree with what you're saying there. I think, though, the trigger point for me is going to be if we are under restriction from either the state or county with regard to indoor seating, indoor numbers. That's going to be the trigger for me to start talking about outdoor seating or some way to get, again, our restaurants back up on a par where they can stay alive. Up until that point, I'm going to sit where I am. I don't, again, we've made our decision November 1st. Unless something happens between here and the next couple months, I'm thinking that at that point, maybe we can agendize it or bring it back for discussion. But I wouldn't be wanting to, at this point, bring it into an agenda item until we need to.
Maria?
I would also, as I was listening to you, Mayor, I was thinking, is there a way where we can direct staff to, as they see the numbers or they see the COVID updates, to be able to bring that to us? Maybe the city manager could bring that to us and say, okay, the numbers are getting higher. Could they direct it back to us?
I'll defer to the city attorney on that.
I think the city council can provide direction to city staff to agendize at a future date based on the criteria the councilwoman has outlined, or take any additional actions for a future agendized item.
So let me ask Maria, this would have to be defined. You would have to say, would you say if infection rates according to county public health hit a certain level, or if the trend continues? How would you phrase that?
I would phrase it as the trend continues.
So if we're on an upward trend of infection for time certain, you would want it automatically brought back?
Under the supervision of the city manager, yes. To be brought back to us, to agendize.
Thank you. Councilman Strong?
Well, my concern is if we start taking them down, it's going to take time to get them back up and even more disruption. I would like to see this come back quickly for us to make those decisions a little more definitively as to what are the criteria that we're going to follow. I think we've picked an arbitrary time to just end it based on a lot of assumptions, which we now know are somewhat invalid. Since we already know they're somewhat invalid, we need to know just how invalid they are. And if we wait until that is known, and meanwhile we've taken them down, I think we're going to lose valuable time that could just destroy everything we've tried to do. So I think we at least have to continue the discussion and set up the criteria by which we're going to act or not act, and not just pull everything down immediately. That's my opinion.
Okay. So I'm going to make a motion, and it can fly or not fly. I'm going to move that we put this back on the agenda for discussion at the next council meeting, because I want my 3 questions answered. And to explore the possibility of implementing the type of strategy that Councilwoman Garcia has suggested regarding monitoring the COVID infection and how that would relate to extending the existence of parklets.
I'll second that.
I have a motion by myself, a second by Councilwoman Garcia. Further discussion?
Mr. Mayor, can I ask a question on staff's behalf so we have a complete understanding of what you're asking for? We'd be coming back. There's 2 issues, right? One is the council interested in entertaining permanent parklets in downtown? The second issue is, due to potential increases in restrictions or concerns related to COVID, should we extend the deadline? Are you asking us to come back on just the second issue, which is a discussion of extending the deadline and how to assign some criteria or evaluation to whether that should happen?
Yeah, and I thank you for bifurcating that action. I actually want both of them. Second?
Yes, second that.
Mr. Strong?
Yes, I agree.
Any further discussion? Roll call vote, please.
Mayor Martin?
Aye.
Councilmember Garcia?
Aye.
Councilmember Hammond?
No.
Councilmember Strong?
Aye.
Motion passes 3-1. Thank you very much. Okie dokie, where are we now? Pardon? Yes.
Item 25, Mr. Mayor.
We're waiting for Councilman Gregory.
Okay, thank you.
Councilman Gregory has returned to the room. We're going to go on to item number 25, appointment of Ty Lewis as city manager and approval of employment agreement. Mr. Carpenter.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, members of council, the city conducted a 6-month recruitment. The city council, with assistance from members of the community and the city's executive team, interviewed a number of qualified individuals, and the council, after that process, selected their most desired candidate, our Police Chief Ty Lewis, for the position. Council authorized certain terms of a potential employment agreement. Those were presented to Chief Lewis, and he has agreed to the terms. So we have an employment agreement before you tonight. Just to remind you of the terms of that agreement, the annual base salary will begin at $221,000. There is a potential for a 3.5% wage increase after a satisfactory performance evaluation at the end of Mr. Lewis's first year of employment. Future increases would be subject to City Council's discretion. Performance evaluation would be conducted every 6 months for the first year and then annually thereafter. There is proposed an automobile allowance of $230.77 per pay period. There is a $457 deferred compensation plan contribution of $369 per pay period, and the agreed upon severance would be 6 months salary and health benefits unless terminated for cause. That is a summary of the employment terms. The staff recommendation is that the council approve the resolution authorizing the mayor to enter into a employment agreement with Ty Lewis.
Thank you. Questions of council? Questions of staff? No. Anyone?
No.
Very good. We'll open it to the public. Any comment from the public on this item? Anyone online?
Yes, sir. D. Lacey.
Welcome, D.
Hi, it's Dee Lacey, 1195 Beaver Creek Lane, Paso Robles. I just want to congratulate the new city manager, Ty Lewis, and thank you all for the process. It's been a long one. I think you've made a great choice. I wish you all the best of luck. And as always, there are those of us that are ready to step up and help.
Thank you very much for calling. Is there anyone else?
No, sir.
We will close public comment and bring it back to the council. Mr. Gregory.
I would like to make a recommendation that we approve Resolution 21XXX, appointing Ty Lewis as city manager effective August 22nd, 2021, authorizing the mayor to execute the employment agreement between the city of Paso Robles and Ty Lewis, and approving the revised master pay schedule.
Second. Motion by Councilman Gregory, second by Councilman Hammond. Council discussion? Roll call vote, please.
Councilmember Gregory.
Aye.
Councilmember Hammond.
Aye.
Councilmember Garcia.
Aye.
Councilmember Strong.
Aye.
And Mayor Martin.
Aye. Motion passes 5-0. Congratulations, Mr. Lewis. And on this occasion, I'm reminded of something my wife once told me. She said, if we only ran the world, there'd be a whole different set of problems. Welcome to a whole different set of problems, Mr. Lewis. Okay, we have 3 items that have been pulled from our consent agenda. First was item number 15. Number 15 is the approval of oak tree removal permit 21-14. Removal of 3 coast live oak trees, 20 at 11 Vine Street, APN 008-391-037 and -046. Staff report, please.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. Warren Frace, Community Development Director. This is a request to remove 3 trees. This is a request by Habitat for Humanity. This is a project that was approved about 10 years ago. They were getting ready to move into construction. The condition of the trees have declined since the project was originally approved about 10 years ago, as I mentioned, and these trees represent basically a hazard. They can't remain on the site. So the recommendation is to remove the trees. Tree 1 is shown here on this picture. You can see that there's damage to the trunk, rot. This tree will eventually fail. And then there's 2 smaller trees that are along a fence line, impacted by utilities in poor condition. Recommendation is to remove those. There's a number of other trees in the center of the site. Those will be maintained and integrated into the project. And that concludes staff's report.
Thank you. Questions of staff? Seeing none, we'll open it to public for comment. Welcome.
Dale Guston, 945 Spring Street. The applicant is well known for doing fine projects. I'm just once again feeling we're getting too many projects that are removing oak trees for the convenience of the developer. This is not necessarily one of them, but I think it did warrant a full report on the project.
Thank you. Is there any further public comment? Anyone online?
No, sir.
We'll close public comment and bring it back to the council. Mr. Hammond. Please. Roll call vote, please.
Councilmember Hammond?
Aye.
Councilmember Gregory?
Aye.
Councilmember Garcia?
Aye.
Councilmember Strong?
Aye.
And Mayor Martin?
Aye. Motion passes 5-0. Second item removed from consent is number 19, approval of an agreement with the Paso Robles Museum Foundation for an option to purchase a portion of Pioneer Park property.
Mr. Mayor, members of council, the city has been in conversations with the Museum Foundation for, I think, over 2 years related to this property. The museum would like this property for future expansion. The city has contemplated the future expansion through its planning documents. It was determined, though, that based on the museum's timeline, they didn't desire to actually purchase the property at this time. That they instead would like to purchase options to purchase the property at some point in the future, when and if the city no longer needs the park property for the skate park and the restroom. So this agenda item would grant the Museum Foundation a 5-year option to purchase the property if the city declares that it no longer needs the property for the skate park, and also grants the museum 2 additional 5-year options to extend for a total of 15 possible years of an option agreement. And again, the city's not obligated to sell the property to the Museum Foundation. That would only occur if the city determines that it no longer needs the property for the skate park purposes. Then the museum would have the right to purchase the property. The purchase price is $25,000, and those are the basic terms of the agreement, and staff can answer any questions.
Thank you. Questions of staff? Mr. Hammond.
Yeah, Greg, a couple questions. Again, coming back to the previous item we just voted on with oak trees, I don't know if anybody noticed, there was a huge limb that came off of the oak tree on the southern end of that property the other day. And with regard to being a park and the liability of, we're still liable at this point, even after we transfer this option to the museum. We're still basically operating the park and therefore liable for anything that happens there.
That is correct.
Yeah. I think, again, it's a good option at this point for the museum to exert on the city to be able to control that property in the future. But I think what we also ought to say, too, is that, with our drought situation right now and the stress that the trees are having, I think everybody needs to be on the alert of oak trees. And if you see something starting to happen, make sure that you notify the city. This could have been a very dangerous situation if somebody was underneath that limb, but it was huge that came on. So that's all I had.
Thank you. Anyone else? We'll open to public comment.
Dale Guston, 945 Spring Street. I'm all in favor of this. I wish they put the map up, though, to show the areas that are being involved in this.
Warren, the map was actually attached to the addendum, right?
Can we not do that?
I'm not seeing it.
The clerk is pulling it up.
Our city clerk is working on it.
Oh, okay. Give us a minute.
I think it's
Page 6.
They said the interim city manager indicated some confusion about the parcels being sold or leased, and I just like clarification using the map. While she's doing that, as a member of the Pioneer Day Committee for many, many years, I'm not on the executive board, but I've been avid in supporting Pioneer Day for a long time. I've been anything from a crossing guard or to an announcer for the Pioneer Day Parade, which is also a part of the museum functions. They are jointly combined. Pioneer Day and the museum operate jointly together as supporting the Pioneer Museum and Pioneer Day.
So, Mr. Mayor, the map superimposed on an aerial photo is now on the screen. The parcel is the shape that's indicates 71,035 square feet. It's located at the southwest corner of 19th Street and Riverside Avenue, and includes passive park space, but also the restroom building and the skate park.
Okay.
Okay.
Thanks for the clarification.
Thank you. Any other public comment on this item? Anybody online?
No, sir.
Thank you. We'll close public comment, bring it back to the council. Mr. Gregory?
I'd like to make a motion, if there's no further discussion, that we approve the resolution 21XX and authorize the city manager to execute the option agreement with the Paso Robles Museum Foundation for the future right to acquire the portion of Pioneer Park, and authorizing the city manager and the city attorney to make any minor technical or non-substantive changes to the agreement as appropriate.
I'll second that.
Motion by Councilman Gregory, second by Councilwoman Garcia. Any further discussion? Fred, you got anything?
No, sir.
Thank you. Roll call vote.
Councilmember Gregory?
Aye.
Councilmember Garcia?
Aye.
Councilmember Hammond?
Aye.
Councilmember Strong?
Aye.
Mayor Martin?
Aye. Motion passes 5-0. The last item taken from the consent agenda for separate consideration is item number 20, which is the approval of short-term lease agreement with the County of San Luis Obispo for a temporary COVID-19 testing center at the train station at 800 Pine Street.
Mr. Mayor, members of council, that I actually pulled this item from the consent calendar because we had some substantive changes to the agreement with the county that differ from the option agreement that was in your packet. So we felt it was appropriate to pull this item and go over those in detail. This agreement really came about in the last week or so. So this has been a bit of a rush for both us and the county, but we wanted to accommodate the county's desire to lease this building from us in order to test city residents and area residents for COVID. The city owns the train station building. It's about 2,588 square feet. It's been vacant for some time. We've actually had some difficulties during COVID in leasing the property. The county, we had entered into an agreement with Lee and Associates to market the property on our behalf. That agreement actually just expired, but Lee felt it was appropriate to honor their agreement with us and continue to work on our behalf. We will be returning to council with an extension to the Lee and Associates agreement to memorialize that they are the leasing agents for this property, and we'll do that at your next meeting. But Lee and Associates was approached by the county. The county actually wants to use the property as a COVID testing facility beginning this Friday, or at least take possession of the property this Friday. I'm not exactly certain when they're going to start testing, but we can certainly inform the public of when that testing will occur. The county agreed to our lease term as far as the price and some of the basic terms. So in order to accommodate their schedule, we put together a short-term lease agreement. The lease is for 6 months. We put together a short-term lease agreement. We put it in your agenda packet. We sent it to the county on Friday of last week. The county asked for changes to several of the terms, some of which we didn't feel were appropriate, some of which we felt we could agree to, or at least staff could recommend that the city council agree to. And those changes have to do with the repair and maintenance section of the agreement. The county asks that the city be responsible for maintaining the building systems. That would be the HVAC, plumbing, and electrical systems. Based on conversations with our building maintenance superintendent, we feel that those systems are in good shape, and we are willing to maintain those during the 6 months of the city's lease. We clarified what other expenses are subject to the county, additional rent expenses are subject to the county, which aren't. There was some clarification that needed to occur around utilities. We had required in our lease that the county be responsible for the utilities that are metered to that building. Unfortunately, the building isn't separately metered. It appears that it's tied to the parking lot lights, the restrooms, and potentially some other uses of electricity in that area. So what we've agreed to is in the next few days work out a mutually equitable means of, they're in agreement that they'll pay their fair share of the utilities. We just have to figure out a way of calculating that. And Mr. Rosen, am I leaving anything else out? Insurance. We had sort of a standard commercial insurance clause in the lease agreement. The county indicated to us that they're self-insured, so that some of those terms don't really apply in this case because it's another government agency. So we've made those changes to the short-term lease agreement that Mr. Rosen has provided to you tonight. Staff is recommending that the council agree with those changes, accept the terms of the lease, and allow us to lease the property to the county for the next 6 months for COVID testing purposes. And that concludes my report.
Thank you. Questions of staff? Mr. Hammond.
Yeah, Greg, just a question about Lee and Associates. Did they bring this tenant to our attention, or was it something that we found on our own?
No, they brought, they continued to represent us. They brought us the tenant.
Okay. Even though their contract had quit, that's what I'm wondering, where the disconnect was and when this all happened. Contractually, do we really need to?
I think honestly, we may have all lost track of the expiration date.
Okay.
But they did do the work, and they did bring us the tenant, and we feel it's appropriate from staff to recommend an extension of that agreement with Lee. They would get 5% of the gross $23,000.
Right. Agreed. If they brought the tenant, I certainly agree too. So, thank you.
Any other questions of staff? Open for public comment. Anyone online?
No, sir.
Close public comment, bring it back to the council.
Make a motion.
Mr. Mayor?
Hammond? I'm Mr. Strong, did you say something?
Yes.
Go ahead.
I just wanted to make a comment. And I just wanted to point out briefly that this is a leasing of public property that the city owns to someone. And we had already agreed to lease, we've leased it out before to private enterprise. And so if we lease other public property for parklets, it's not that different from this. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Hammond.
I'll go ahead and make a resolution, make a motion for resolution 21XX approving the lease agreement with the county of San Luis Obispo for the commercial property at 800 Pine Street, attached here to attachment 4, and authorizing the city manager to execute leasing agreements such to any minor technical non-substantial changes approved by the city attorney and consistent with his council's intent.
Second.
Motion by Councilman Hammond, second by Councilman Gregory. Roll call vote, please.
Councilmember Hammond.
Aye.
Councilmember Gregory.
Aye.
Councilmember Garcia.
Aye.
Councilmember Strong.
Aye.
Mayor Martin.
Aye. Motion passes 5-0. I believe that brings us to the end of our business agenda. We come now to council business and committee reports. Mr. Strong.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Actually, I had no actual city meetings, but I have been meeting extensively with Caltrans, with city staff, with the state of California, and with organizations at the state level regarding our infrastructure and traffic improvements, especially regarding the overpass over Highway 46 East at Union Road, as well as the bridge over the river. I've also met with the private sector landowners in that area, and we are trying to work together as a group to solve this problem. Caltrans is as willing as anyone else to work cooperatively with all of us to get this solved, recognizing that a lot of it depends upon state and federal funding and our ability to negotiate grants and or some form of money that we can put together through different sources that we may have. So we're working diligently on this. I'm pleased that our staff is cooperating just as well as everyone else on this, and I will be doing so further in the future to try to get this accomplished as quickly as possible. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilwoman Garcia.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mayor. I attended a child care planning council meeting via Zoom. They have several projects and advocacy updates that they're working on to try to get money, funding, and ways to reach funding potentials through the state. They also talked about the updates for First 5, what it's going to look like for Head Starts and child cares to open up. I also attended the interviews that we had here in this chambers for the Oversight Committee and a parking commission. And I also attended the school board meeting just so I could be up to date on how the students are going to go back to school, what the process is for opening schools. I also attended the Congressman Carvajal's visit here also in the chambers. And I think that's all I have, sir.
Thank you. Councilman Hammond.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Last week we had the parking commission that we attended, and of course we heard a little bit about that tonight with their recommendation with regard to parklets and the intent for the parking itself. So the other item that I'll report on is the integrated waste management that I've been a member of since my tenure here at Council, 15 years. Last week was a very, very interesting week, most disturbing that I've had in all my time here. And again, it has to do with the fact that integrated waste management is going through a lot of rough water right now. We don't have an executive director. One resigned, let's quit. Last week, we had the county voting to remove themselves as a member from the JPA. The agency does a lot of good for the county. It's in the economy of scale where It deals with a lot of the state mandates and reporting requirements that all cities and counties have to do. For quite some time, they've been doing pretty well. In the last few years, though, that agency has been taking certain steps to stay outside of what our original intent was, is basically to regulate, if needed, any kind of ordinances that have to be for the good of all the members. Last few years, we've seen other members exert on other members, agency, I'm talking now the county and Paso Robles in particular, that they wanted to see us do certain types of requirements with regard to different styrofoam, for instance, ordinances that we did not take an action on. They use the agency in order to force our city to do things like that, which basically causes a lot of disruption with the way we tend to govern, or we want to govern our roads, and of course the county the same way. So at any rate, I think that was the motivation for the county to want to disconnect from the agency. Now we are alone, so to speak, with the other cities, and we're not quite sure how this is going to move forward. With SB 1383 coming, where there's a lot of regulations that's going to have to be implemented on every person in California, that agency would be critical to helping our city stay effective with regard to taxation and cost that we have to put into being compliant. So moving forward, we'll see how this is going to go. I think the intent is to try to rewrite the agreement, the JPA, Joint Powers Agreement, that all the other members that are still there will abide by. And if we can do that, I think we'll bring this back for further discussion. But it's kind of troubling at this point in time with a long agency that has had a major change in direction. So sorry to report that, but keep you in the loop, and as long as the staff is working on that too. So thank you. We'll see.
Mr. Gregory.
Yes. I sat in on the Senior Advisory Committee discussing a lot of different things that they have needs for coming back out of COVID, including some tech help and all that kind of stuff. I had a meeting with also with Salud Carvajal, with our Mayor Martin and Fred and Maria. We got an opportunity to tell him all the things we need. And I think he was amazed at all the projects that are going on around here. I also had a breakfast meeting with Mayor Martin and John Prashant. We talked about a myriad of subjects. And I'd like to finish my comment tonight by thanking Mr. Greg Carpenter for doing a great job as an interim. He's been very helpful. He made sure that the next guy would have it pretty easy stepping in and didn't let anything collect too much dust. And he was a pleasure to deal with, and I just want to thank him for doing a great job.
Mr. Mayor, if I could piggyback on that, I think we should adjourn our meeting in his honor.
Good idea.
Mr. Mayor, thank you for those kind words. It's been a pleasure, and I say that honestly. It's really been inspiring for me to work with this community, with you as a council, and with really a great staff team. They really do a great job for this community. I was in a meeting, for example, last week where we were talking about just a really daunting project: environmental issues, financial issues, design issues, property owner issues. And I was thinking, should we even try this? Why are we even talking about this? But your staff, hey, Greg, we got this. This is what we do. We do this all the time. We can figure this out. You have this independent spirit here of solving your own problems. I think you realize that no one's going to solve them for you. So you, working with your community, working with your staff, get things done. You make decisions. Even tonight's agenda, you did things tonight that would have taken me months to accomplish in previous positions. So it's been refreshing and inspiring to me. I got a lot out of this. I'm not talking about pay. I'm talking about acceptance and appreciation for being a public servant, and that's why we do this work. So thanks for having me, trusting me. You literally gave me a key to the city and said, you know, we don't know you very well, but go do a good job for us. And thank you for trusting me with that.
Well, we do indeed thank you for all you've done and gotten us through a period of time, a period of uncertainty, you know, as we move from one phase to the next. And I can honestly say we didn't miss a step, and that's doing great respect to your work.
Oh, I would echo that as well. I think it's been a pleasure working with you, Greg. And again, I don't know if people know, but you are essentially a local. You do have a residence in the area. And even though you're from down south, you do come up quite often. And I think you're considered a Roblin at this point for sure. So I think at this point you are then in charge until Saturday midnight. And then that is correct. We change over to Ty.
So Saturday at 11:59, I can still email it.
I think we got his phone number.
Okay.
I'll give your key back, right?
Any other comments? No. Well, I'm not going to give you the list of all the meetings I've gone to. I'll duplicate a lot of what Councilman Gregory has said. We've all been out there trying to be active in the community. I do want to end before I entertain a motion to adjourn by reminding people that COVID-19 is indeed on the upswing in our county. And when COVID first started out, it seems like forever ago, but a year or so ago, I know that many of us thought, well, this will go away very quickly. It's just like the flu. And we found out that it's not just like the flu. And then, thanks to science, we came up with several vaccines that are incredibly effective in keeping people healthy. We heard the report earlier tonight that 99% of people who are seriously ill with it or die with it are unvaccinated. Here in the city of Paso Robles, we're about half vaccinated. And I've had numerous conversations with citizens pro and anti-vaccination. But it all comes down to this, okay? We all want to get rid of masks. We all want to go back to life as usual. Nobody wants to get sick. Nobody wants to go out of business. And regardless of what other factors you want to argue about, the fastest way to get to that point is to get everybody vaccinated. So I urge you to do that, to protect yourselves, your family, your neighbors, and your community. And with that, I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
And Greg Carpenter's honor?
Yes.
Very well. So moved.
Second.
We have a motion to adjourn in the honor of Mr. Carpenter. Motion by Mr. Hammond, second by Mr. Gregory. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
We are adjourned.